Okay, so I want to start today by visualizing two different maps. Imagine you have a map of the entire state of Minnesota for 2025. You color code it for traffic safety, and based on all the official data, that map is going to look overwhelmingly green. Fatalities are down, safety is way up, everyone's high-fiving.
It's the kind of map a governor frames,
Yeah.
puts it on the wall. It looks like a massive public policy victory.
Exactly. But then you take a magnifying glass and you zoom way in on the South Metro area, specifically Scott County. And suddenly that green map, it just starts bleeding red.
It's a classic statistical paradox. You have a macro trend that's going one way, a very positive way, and a micro trend in this one community that's going in the complete opposite direction.
And that is exactly where we are parking the car for this deep dive. We're looking at a stack of reports from the Prior Lake Police Department, the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, and minutes from some pretty intense city council meetings. Our mission is to figure out why, in a banner year for safety, Scott County somehow became the third deadliest county in the entire state.
And just a heads up for you listening, this isn't really a story about traffic tickets. It's a story about what I call the iceberg theory of crime. It's about how the official numbers we all see on spreadsheets might just be this tiny, visible fraction of a much, much darker reality on the street.
So let's start with that green map. 2025 was objectively a really good year for Minnesota drivers, right?
Statistically, it was incredible. Yeah. According to the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, the state saw a 20% drop in overall traffic fatalities. They went from 475 deaths the previous year all the way down to 370.
Which is huge.
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah.
In the world of public safety, a 20% year-over-year reduction is, well, it's almost unheard of without some huge external factor, like a pandemic keeping everyone at home. So at the state level, the system is working.
But then we look at Scott County, and this is the part that, frankly, it confused me when I first read it. Scott County is suburban. It has rural parts, sure, but it's not a massive population center like Hennepin County or Ramsey County, with Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Right.
You just expect the big cities to have the high body counts just based on volume alone.
Right. And they do. Hennepin and Ramsey are numbers 1 and 2. But Scott County coming in at number 3. That is, it's statistically disproportionate. It is punching way, way above its weight class in terms of tragedy.
So what's the variable here? I mean, is it speed? Is it icy roads? Is it deer jumping out in front of cars?
Well, the state's Toward Zero Deaths program tracks the 4 main killers: speed, distracted driving, lack of seatbelts, and impaired driving. In Scott County, and specifically in the data coming out of Prior Lake, impaired driving is it's the monster in the room. It's the one variable that refuses to drop.
And this leads us to probably the most shocking number in all of this research. It came from Prior Lake Police Chief Mark Duggan. He stood up in front of a city council meeting, which, let's be honest, is usually pretty dry stuff about zoning and potholes, and he just dropped a bomb.
The 300 to 400% estimate?
Yeah. He said the actual number of impaired drivers on the road is likely 300 to 400% higher than what his officers are actually catching. Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Is that a real number? Or is that a police chief trying to scare the council into giving him a bigger budget for, 2 more squad cars? How can he possibly know how many people he isn't catching?
That is exactly the right question to ask. It sounds like a guess, right? But to understand why it's likely pretty accurate, you have to understand the mechanics of modern policing. It's not about laziness, it's about bandwidth.
Explain that.
Okay, so think about a typical Friday night shift. You have officers on patrol, but then the radio just starts going off. You have a domestic dispute over here. You have a theft at a retail store. You have a medical emergency where an officer needs to assist paramedics. You get an alarm trigger at a warehouse.
And those are all things you have to respond to. You can't just ignore a domestic call.
Exactly. Those are calls for service. They're reactive. The officer is basically tethered to the radio. DUI enforcement, on the other hand, is proactive. You have to hunt for it. You have to watch traffic patterns, look for weaving, follow a car for a mile. You can't catch fish if you're busy fixing the leaks in the boat.
So the 300% gap represents the time when the hunters are stuck handling other emergencies. The drunk drivers are still out there. The net is just sitting on the deck.
Precisely. And Chief Duggan didn't just rely on the math or the theory. He actually went out and proved it with what I'm calling the Friday night field test.
This story,
Ugh.
this part gave me chills. Literally.
It sets the scene perfectly, doesn't it?
Okay, so picture this. It's a Friday night in Minnesota. And not just any Friday night. It is minus 35 degrees outside.
Which is so significant. Criminology 101 usually suggests that crime drops in extreme weather. When it's 35 below zero, people stay inside. They don't go to bars, they don't drive around.
Right. If I'm looking at the thermometer and it says -35, I am buried under 3 blankets. I am not going anywhere. So Chief Duggan decides to go out and work alongside the overnight officers. He wants to test the waters. He gets in a squad car and starts actively looking for impaired driving.
And remember, the assumption is the road should be pretty empty and safe.
And how long did it take him to find a severe case?
Less than 45 minutes.
Less than an hour, in subarctic temperatures.
He finds a car driving erratically. And the details here really matter. This wasn't someone just passing through on the interstate. This was a local resident. They lived in the community. They had been drinking locally. And they blew more than twice the legal limit.
And the report mentioned they nearly crashed multiple times before the chief even got the lights on.
Right. So, I mean, think about the implication of that. If the chief of police, who arguably has more admin duties than anyone, can jump in a car during the absolute worst weather of the year and find a deadly driver in under an hour, what does that say about a warm Saturday night in July?
It validates the iceberg theory. If you can find one that easily, when the conditions are terrible, the water must be absolutely full of them when conditions are good.
Exactly. It suggests that the 300 to 400% figure isn't hype. It might actually be conservative.
That is just, it's terrifying. But let's pivot to the human side of this equation. Because if the problem is this massive, you need people willing to fight it. And the reports highlight one specific officer, Amanda Lake, who put up numbers that frankly don't make sense to me.
You're talking about her 52 DUI arrests in 2025. She was named Officer of the Year for it.
52 arrests. Now, I want to pause on the number 52, because to the average person, 52 sounds, okay, it's one a week. If I'm a salesman and I only close one deal a week, I'm probably stressing about my quota. Why is 52 arrests so impressive? Why is that considered Herculean?
This is where we need to stop and really explain the anatomy of an arrest. Because you're right. If this were just handing out speeding tickets, 52 is nothing. You could write 52 speeding tickets in a busy weekend. But a DUI is a completely different beast. It is a procedural black hole.
Okay, so walk me through it. I see a car swerving, I pull him over, then what?
All right, step one, the investigation. You are on the side of the road. It's dark, maybe it's raining, maybe it's -35 like the Chiefs night. You have to interview the driver, look for all the indicators of impairment, bloodshot eyes, slurred speech. Then you have to get them out of the car for field sobriety tests.
But walking the line, touching your nose stuff.
Exactly. But you can't just rush through it. This has to be done with extreme precision because everything you do is evidence in court. If you mess up the instructions, the whole case can get thrown out. This takes 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes right there on the side of the road.
Okay, so there's half an hour gone already.
Then you do the preliminary breath test. Let's say they fail. You arrest them, you put them in handcuffs. Now the clock really starts. You have to secure their vehicle, wait for a tow truck, inventory the contents so you aren't liable for anything inside. Then you transport the suspect to the jail or to the station.
And once you get to the station, you're done.
Oh, no. You're just getting started. Now you enter the implied consent phase. In Minnesota, like a lot of states, this is a very strict legal procedure. You have to read them a very long, very specific legal advisory. You have to give them a phone book and a telephone and a private room.
Wait, they can call a lawyer right then and there while they're intoxicated?
Yes, and legally, you have to give them a reasonable amount of time to do it. That alone can take 30 to 45 minutes of the officer just sitting there, waiting. Then, do you administer the official evidentiary test, breath, blood, or urine?
What if they refuse the test?
Then you might need to get a search warrant for a blood draw. That means drafting a warrant, contacting a judge, potentially waking a judge up in the middle of the night, getting it signed, and then taking them to a hospital.
So we are hours into this process now.
We are easily 3, maybe 4 hours in, and then you still have the booking paperwork, the fingerprinting, the mug shot, writing the detailed report. A single DUI arrest effectively takes that officer completely off the street for half their shift.
Okay, now the math is starting to make sense. If Officer Leiby did this 52 times, that is, what, roughly 200 to 250 hours where she just vanished from patrol?
Correct. That is hundreds of hours where she wasn't available for theft calls, wasn't available for medicals. She essentially removed herself from the workforce to remove these 52 drivers from the road.
That's a massive trade-off.
Yeah.
It's almost as the department has to choose. Do you want us to catch drunk drivers, or do you want us to respond to 911 calls? Because we physically cannot do both at the same time.
That is the resource constraint in a nutshell. And that is why Officer Lay's performance is so impressive. She managed to handle that insane administrative workload 52 times and still do the rest of her job.
And it wasn't just boring paperwork, was it? The report mentions these were not all polite, compliant interactions.
Yeah, far from it. Chief Duggan was very clear about this. These were 52 deadly and dangerous drivers. Officer Lay was sworn at, she was run from, she had suspects physically fight her.
So you add a layer of physical danger on top of the time drain?
You do. Every single time she stops someone, she is stepping into a potentially violent situation with someone who is chemically irrational. So when you see 52 arrests, you should really read it as 52 potential altercations de-escalated.
It really highlights the cost of enforcement. It's expensive in time and it's expensive in risk. But this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle here. If the problem is growing, that's the iceberg, and the human solution, like Officer Lay, is maxed out because you can't clone her, what do you do?
You have to look for force multipliers.
And the report suggests the South Metro places like Lakeville, Rosemount, Prior Lake is turning to technology. They are basically becoming tech startups to try and solve this problem.
They have to. If you can't add more humans, you have to make the humans you have more efficient.
So let's look at the specific examples from the source material. Lakeville is installing license plate readers, OPRs. Now, I know some people get nervous about surveillance, but purely from a resource standpoint, how does a camera help catch a drunk driver?
It works by reducing cognitive load. Think about a police officer driving down the road. They are scanning for speeding, for weaving, for expired tabs, for stolen cars, for people on their phones. Their brain is just multitasking constantly.
And multitasking usually means you're going to miss things.
Exactly. The LPR automates the looking for stolen cars and expired tabs part of the job. It scans thousands of plates an hour. It takes that burden completely off the officer's brain.
So the officer doesn't have to squint at license plates anymore.
Right. It frees up their attention. If the computer is watching for the administrative stuff, the human officer can look for behaviors, the swerving, the braking, the signs of impairment that a camera can't see yet.
That makes sense. You outsource the boring stuff so the human can do the complex stuff. But Prior Lake is doing something that sounds even more futuristic. The drone as first responder program. This sounds like straight up science fiction.
It's a game changer for that time sync problem we were just talking about.
So how does it work?
Normally, if a 911 call comes in, say a report of a suspicious person in a park, you have to send a squad car. That takes an officer out of the hunt for 20 minutes to drive there, check it out, and then drive back.
And usually it turns out to be nothing, right?
Very often, yes. It's a kid waiting for a school bus or a utility worker reading a meter. But you have to check. With the drone program, the drone launches from the roof of the station the second the call comes in. It flies straight there at 40 miles an hour, no traffic lights, no stop signs.
And it sends video back to the station.
Live HD video. The sergeant at the desk can look at the screen and say, okay, that's just a kid with a hoodie. He's fine. Cancel the squad car.
And that officer never even has to leave their patrol sector.
Exactly. They stay on the road. They stay hunting for the impaired drivers. The drone handles the triage so the humans can focus on the high priority threats.
It's fascinating. The drone technology isn't necessarily catching the drunk driver. The technology is buying back the time for the human to catch the drunk driver.
That is the perfect way to put it. It's all about efficiency. We can't solve the iceberg with just brute force. We just don't have the budget or the bodies. We have to be smarter about how we use the minutes in an officer's shift.
So bringing it all back home, we have a state that's getting safer, but a county that is getting deadlier. We have this 300% gap between what's really happening and the arrest records. And we have officers like Amanda Lean working themselves to the bone just to try and close that gap.
It's a very stark picture. And for you, if you're living in Scott County or anywhere, really, it changes how you should look at your daily commute.
What's the real takeaway for them? I mean, beyond the obvious, don't drink and drive.
It's about defensive driving. When you realize that for every flashing light you see, there are 3 or 4 other impaired drivers slipping by, you realize you can't trust the other cars on the road. You have to assume they could be impaired.
Especially at night.
Especially at night, but honestly, any time. And if you see something, say something.
Call 911.
Absolutely. Be the force multiplier. The police admit they can't be everywhere. They need the community to be their eyes. If you see someone swerving all over the road, don't just shake your head and pass them. Call it in. You might be saving a life.
And remember Officer Lay. Think about the effort required to stop just one of these drivers. Don't be the reason an officer has to spend 4 hours in a booking room. instead of keeping the rest of the community safe.
That is a great way to put it.
I just can't stop thinking about that 300% number.
It's haunting.
It is. It really lingers. And it leaves me with a final thought for everyone listening. We've spent this time talking about drunk driving because that's what the data highlighted for us. But if the iceberg theory is true for this, if we are missing 300 to 400% of impaired drivers just because we lack the time to process them,
Where are you going with this?
well, what other crime statistics are just the tip of the iceberg? Domestic violence, assault, fraud. How much of our reality is defined not by what actually happens, but simply by what the police have the time to write down?
That is a very uncomfortable question to end on. It suggests our map of safety might be much, much smaller than the territory itself.
Something to think about the next time you look at a bar chart of safety statistics. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden numbers of Scott County. Stay safe out there.
Drive safe.